Chapter 2, Facilitation. We have here the table of contents. Part 1, Facilitators and the Art of Facilitation. Part 2, Interventions. Part 3, Facilitation Challenges and Solutions. Part 4, Groups and Group Meetings. Now let us start with the Part 1, which is the Art of Facilitation. What is facilitation? Facilitation is act of engaging participants in creating, discovering, and applying learning insights. It literally means making things easy. It is the act of facilitating, gathering a group of individuals together, and making it simple for them to work as one. Facilitation is also helping a group identifying common objective and offering group process to achieve those while maintaining neutrality. Next is facilitators. A person who helps a group or team to achieve results in interactive events by using a range of skills and methods to bring the best out in the people as they work together. A facilitator facilitates a group of people so they can make progress. They remain fully independent of the group and encourages participants to discuss issues openly. Now, what do they do? Well, for example, there is a group of people looking at a problem and trying to find out a reason for doing something, and they are having discussions on how to work it out. Now, if you are the facilitator of that particular group, your goal would be you want those people to do something. You will primarily act as an organizer and communicator with a special expertise in group dynamics, and you will ensure a two-way expressive involvement among individuals. Next is roles of a facilitator. We have three: catalyst, conductor, and coach. A catalyst for discussion. It is where the facilitator makes possible the transformation of input to desired outcome without being an active part of the conversation herself. Next is conductor. A conductor of an orchestra, where the facilitator synchronizes all the musicians, optimally guiding the use of their instruments toward the desired result. As the conductor guides the participants, a system is organically created wherein the facilitator helps every individual comply with the agreed upon rules and norms to be followed. Lastly, a coach, where the facilitator helps the group form a constructive way of working together, identify its needs and wishes, and reach the outcome they would jointly like to achieve. Next one is qualities of a good facilitator. First, has a determining set of developed social values which motivates themselves and others. Second, good decision-making skills and exerts effort in actively listening to each individual. Effective facilitators are intelligent people, but equally important, they are people who are willing and able to learn from others and who are interested in new ideas. Third, natural team working abilities that encourage cooperation between the members. Good facilitators have learned how to work with others. In fact, their teamwork skills may be most important of all because every organization must work as a team of members if it is to accomplish its goal. Fourth, effective problem-solving skills and applies healthy conflict resolution techniques. Fifth, responsive and reliable, they inspire trust and openness within the group. Effective facilitators are responsible people. They are capable of responding to others. Persons who are both responsible and reliable are more apt to do a good facilitation job. Next is actions of a good facilitators. First, it observes behavior and provides feedback. Second, asks suggestions, open-ended questions, and promotes innovative thinking. A facilitator must ask a question that doesn't have a single right answer. For example, what do you think we should do? Say more about your idea. And third, guides the group through problems and conflicts. Fourth, encourages positive participation and discussions. A good facilitator exhibits a positive win-win attitude. For example, the facilitator would say, I know this issue is quite emotionally charged, but if we take our time and work our way through the problem, I am sure we can find a solution we can all live with. Then fifth is listens to the opinion of each individual member. A facilitator listens to understand before evaluating. For example, the facilitator would say, let me be sure I understand your view of the problem. You are saying that, is this right? Now I'd like to express my view. And lastly, gets the group to reach an agreement on desired outcomes, agendas, and goals. A good facilitator checks for agreement on a process that has been suggested. Like it would say, is everyone willing to identify criteria first? Just like that. Okay, next. Do's and don'ts. Do's of effective facilitators. First, facilitate team setting time limits that you enforce unless the group changes operating guidelines. Second, point out on subgroupings on members' ideas or uncomfortable issues. Third, encourage brainstorming. Fourth, set comfortable ways for members to express their ideas or opinions. And lastly, encourage introvert members to come forward and share ideas. It is important for the facilitator to set time limits for the group to work as one. Also, making sure that everyone feels comfortable in participating. Then developing a structure that allows for everyone's ideas to be heard and making members feel good about their contribution to the group. And lastly, making sure the group feels that the ideas and decisions are theirs, not just the leaders. Supporting everyone's ideas are not and not criticizing anyone for what they have said. And for the don'ts of effective facilitators, we have try not to pressure them on time limits, let the group avoid issues and conflicts, offer your own viewpoint, steer the group toward what you think is right, and side with particular group or point of view. A facilitator must be a good enough not to pressure the members of the group. It should be the one that leads for the group to avoid issues and chaos. A facilitator must not go on one side and will always be unbiased in every ideas that the members shared. It should not be the one who pushes the group on based on his point of view. Next is facilitation as a critical friend. We have first, you are trusted and viewed as integrity. Next, you ask probing questions that makes people think. And you make sure that people use data to help people see things through a different perspective. Next is you have taken time to understand the unique context of the district. Next, you are focused on the outcome and you are committed to success of the group to better meet the needs. Let's proceed to the next. Specific facilitation behaviors. First is setting ground rules. Setting ground rules is important because it can help to promote an inclusive learning environment for all participants. Examples of ground rules are to treat everyone with respect, communicate openly, treat everyone equally. Next is acknowledging contributions. When people are recognized, it gives them the greater sense of purpose, reinforcing how their work contributes to their team, functions, and overall. Third one is probing. Probing helps the members to clarify their thinking, surface their reasoning, and explore attentive perspective or solutions. A probing question makes a group think more deeply. Fourth is garnering participation. This would help to have meaningful input into the decision-making process. It also creates motivation and engagement. The fifth one is reflecting and clarifying. Reflecting allows the individual to hear their own thoughts and to focus on what they say and feel, while clarifying involves offering back to the individual the essential meaning, as understood by the listener, of what they have just said. It is important because these are tools used to enable them to demonstrate understanding and encourages everyone to talk openly. Lastly, resolving conflict. When conflict is resolved effectively, it leads to accomplishing goals and strengthening relationships between the members. Next one, how facilitation differs from training and presenting. Training, public presentations, and facilitating share some common behavior skills and often complement each other, but they are distinctly different developmental activities. Illustrated below are some traits of each. Okay, so in presenting, audience is present to receive prepared remarks, while in training, participants are present to learn. While in facilitating, participants are group members with a common interest. In presenting, presenters' outline is used to structure a logical presentation, while in training, lessons are planned ahead. Then, in facilitating, an agenda is used to structure the meeting for effectiveness. And in presenting, presenter primarily answers then asks questions. In training, instructor asks questions to evaluate learning, while in facilitating, questions are used to develop individual involvement. And they are all both engaging an audience. Next is the art of asking questions. We have here the 9 rules of asking questions. So, the art of asking questions is a crucial mastery. Simply, to communicate better and to ensure understanding no matter whether you are speaking or listening, you have to master asking questions. This means that you have to know when and how to ask the right questions. That is why these rules for asking non-threatening questions exist. These 9 of rules. Next, part 2, intervention. What is an intervention? Intervention is the act or fact of taking action about something in order to have an effect on its outcome, something that comes between two things, or something that changes the course of something. Using interventions effectively. We have here the types of intervention techniques. First is boomerang. Return the question to the person who asked, so the facilitator is not responsible for all questions. We have here an example. The groupmate said, "I don't like how we are losing track of the topic." And then the facilitator would say, "What do you think we should be doing?" This is useful because it allows the facilitators to assess what the learners know and if they are getting it. It allows other participants to share their experiences and expertise and get involved in the conversation. Next is maintain or regain focus. Make sure everyone is working on the same content at the same time. Being focused on one thing for a certain period allows you to do a better quality of work, more work gets done quicker, and your creative ideas flow easier. Next is say what's going on. Naming something that is not working. Example, bring it up so the group can address it. Sometimes it is about to bring the hype back from the group and the participants should be aware on what is happening. Next is avoid process battles. Prevent lengthy arguments about which is the right way to proceed. Pointing out that a number of approaches will work and getting agreement on one use to start. Example, facilitator would say, can we agree to cover both issues in the remaining time? Okay, which one do you want to start with? Next would be enforce process agreements, reminding the group of a previous agreement. It is important to avoid misunderstanding and turmoil in the group. For example, facilitator would say, we agreed to brainstorm and you are starting to evaluate the ideas. Would you hold onto that idea for now? And next is accept, legitimize, deal with, or defer. Accept ideas without agreeing or disagreeing. Record issues that are deferred and agree when to address them. A positive method for dealing with difficult people or situations that might get a meeting off track. Decide as a group if the issue or idea is more appropriately dealt with here or deferred to another time. Next one is don't be defensive. Accept negative feedback. Arguing back when criticized will provoke more argument. We should accept negative comments and boomerang the issue back on the individual or group. Next is protect others of personal attack. Intervening to stop someone being verbally attacked. This is an important technique to use because there are people that are unaware of what they are doing and on what have been someone made them feel. For example, a facilitator would say, Jake, you've interrupted Emily several times in the last few minutes. I would like to hear what she has to say as well as hearing out your views. And lastly, use humor. Make a joke to relieve the tension. Be sensitive not to joke at someone else's expense. A good joke usually lighten up the atmosphere and would not make everyone feel bored, so it is a nice technique in intervention. Now let us proceed to escalating levels of intervention. The basic approach to dealing with interventions is to start with the most subtle and least threatening approach. If the behavior continues, gradually escalate the interventions as shown in the diagram below. When you feel the conversation starts to stray, you need to use these escalating interventions. You will want to be firm, polite, and fair because you often don't have a whole lot of time and want to keep the conversation moving briskly. So start with the lowest intervention appropriate to the situation. We have the lowest level intervention, make eye contact, then next is stand up, then walk halfway. If that does not modify the disruptive behavior, then kick it up a notch to the next level intervention. Then we have walk by them, make eye contact. Next is ask, what do you think? Then touch and talk directly. Next is confront on a break. And the highest level of intervention is confront before the whole group.
Part 3, Facilitation Challenges and Solutions. On our further discussions on the next slides, we'll be dealing with the challenges faced in facilitation and the solutions for it. Difficult participants. What defines a difficult participant? These refer to anyone whose attitude or behavior prevents the person or others from learning or participating, such as sharing knowledge, applying skills, or acquiring information. We all know that a group isn't perfect, and one of its flaws could be having difficult participants. This is when a behavior or attitude shown by a certain individual opposes a participative one. For example, someone in a group have shy or preoccupied people. So, in order for a group to function well and effectively, a facilitator must apply the strategies for dealing with them. A gifted facilitator can easily get difficult participants on board. It is when you can easily convince your member to participate without going through difficulties or by the means of forcing them. Also, a gifted facilitator does not appear with a negative impact, unlike others, which can easily convince a difficult participant to get involved. Here are some of the general ideas we need to consider to minimize effects of difficult participants. These are already easily understood upon reading, but let's briefly discuss it one by one. First, we need to prepare in advance. One must understand the state of an individual in turning into a difficult participant. Next, we need to allow plenty of time for reflection and discussion. This actually opens a difficult participant to listen instead of resisting from cooperating. Next, we need to focus on the appeal to them. What's in it for me? This simply means we are to stand in the shoes of the members of the group to completely understand what they think about the topic. Also, we must use group dynamics. This is for them to belong to feel that they belong in this group and they feel accepted. Lastly, we must use least obvious techniques. I believe it is for the difficult participants to feel intimidated if we show methods to deal with them. Next is another challenge we encounter. These are the out of control participants. For the definition to be concise, these simply are the people who loses their temper and act blatantly in a situation such as being rude or acting out. So, how to deal with this kind of challenge for a facilitator? First, the same goes from the previous discussion. We must know why and how they act like that. Awareness is the key for us to deal with it. Next, we must be frank and ask them, why are you acting that way? In order for them to be heard and express their feelings. Also, a facilitator must tell other participants about the situation so they know when to move around and talk while the facilitators deal with the problem. A facilitator can pick a ringleader to handle the group in a while too. Lastly, upon dealing with the challenge, the facilitator should have a talk with the troublemaker by simply telling them, I get the idea that you're not happy here, or you can talk to me about your problem in this group. That way, it would make the out of control participant calm. Now, here are some ways to increase participant involvement. So let's be quick in discussing these 8 techniques. Number 1. A very obvious technique is get them involved. By simply making them comfortable with the atmosphere would make them feel less intimidated to participate and share their ideas, right? Number 2. Responding to silence. For example, you are asking for an idea, so you can just immediately ask your members to talk or formulate since it would take a minute for them to think of it. So, we must have a waiting time for it. That's how responding to silence works. Number 3. The power of voice. Simply, a facilitator must not talk too fast or too slow, but it should be casual and in an average manner for them to catch up what you're trying to say. Number 4. The person who argues. For example, like me who gets annoyed or loses my temper easily, I must avoid letting someone push me from causing myself to behave that way. That is why a great reminder, a group who does create a comfortable atmosphere works the best. Again, a great reminder, a group who does create a comfortable atmosphere works the best. The facilitator and members should feel comfortable with each other in a positive sense in order to avoid conflicts and such. Number 5. If you don't know, then you don't know. Well, this is simply acknowledging that if you don't know about something, then you must not act like you know it. Instead, you can ask from your members if they know about it. Next is the reward or pay system. Here goes a great way to increase participants' involvement. For example, For me in my group here in group dynamics, I actually like to compliment my members for their work. Like, just last time, I told my member, Miss Diane Camillion, after passing her presentation that you did a good job and I think you'll improve even a lot more. So that's how you use this technique in order for your participants to get involved even more. Next is quiet people. It's possible for a group to have such member who does not participate because he or she is shy, right? So a facilitator must build ways for that person to be involved. For my case, the best way for them is to talk calmly, like I asked them, do you have any idea? Or you can tell me anything. Or your opinion matters in this group. So that's how it goes. Lastly, brick wall. These are those participants who somewhat show an apathetic approach within your group. A facilitator must not force anyone to respond in a manner you want them to do so. It's just simply respecting them for their views, whatever it may be, and even though it does oppose your belief. Here are some of the facilitator traps a facilitator must be aware of: losing track, premature closure, being a fortune teller, hook on yes spot. So, the first one is losing track. A facilitator should remind himself or herself to stay in track, especially when a lot of activities are to be done. It is important for you to write notes or even an outline. We all know how to do an outline, right? And it is very important to do this to organize your team's activities. Premature closure. It is important to plan a schedule and must give an allotted time for each discussion. Because when you guys don't have time management, there's a big possibility that the important discussion would be cut off due to lack of time. Being a fortune teller. Some members may assume that a facilitator believes that you do have an answer to every single question. So a facilitator must be prepared and must show honesty if he or she knows or does not know the answer about a certain topic. Lastly, hook on yes spot. This simply just means that when you ask a participant what he or she has tried and you know that it has been already used, you must not get stuck. It's like, yes, that's a good idea, but we must consider another suggestion. So you can move on to something else instead of getting hooked in that conversation. So those are the facilitator traps we need to consider. Part 4. Groups and group meetings. So, what is running an effective group meeting? Basically, we've noticed a group meeting, professional company meetings, right? You already know about that. Some does not have clear goals and objectives. It's messy, some are unorganized and even unproductive. So, as a facilitator, one must be aware of the process and what should we do in order to avoid this kind of situations. So, here we'll discuss the causes and what should we do in order for it to be assessed. Number one cause is failure to set and add meetings on time. This is a very common problem to group facilitations. We are often unorganized in terms of schedule, like we sometimes forget the value of time. Some discussions are just too long and some end really late, which exhausts members. The solution for this is to always indicate time on meeting and the designated time for it to end. Next, wandering from agenda and tendencies to bribe. Did you ever experience having group mates who bribe or like complain about topics and ideas? Some even wander from agenda, which is very bad for a group. As a facilitator, you must tactfully bring back the group's focus to the objectives and agenda and encourage them to look forward for the main purpose of the group. Late starting meetings. This is a very common problem to us, especially to groups, and we as Filipinos can't deny the fact about how we often follow the Filipino time. For example, we are asked to meet by 10 a.m., but the members arrive at 11, then the meeting started at 12 noon. It is really important for the facilitator to be aware of this. One must use his or her authority to let the group follow the designated time. Be assertive and organized, and it's a good application to penalize late group members. Yes, normalize penalizing late group members. Next is lack of summary. Have you ever listened to someone who explains like he or she would explain for a lifetime? Well, we must be concise, direct to the point, summarize discussions and decisions for agenda. As for me, I really dislike it when someone explains something over and over again. Like, seriously, I already got your point. You don't have to repeat it over and over to prolong the discussion. So, in order to value time, let's give essence to summarize agendas and topics. Lastly is the lack of minutes. I know that we're already aware of minutes, right? It's the most used, especially in companies. A facilitator must use flip charts and always record details, especially important ones like major actions, decisions, and assignments. It would be helpful upon meeting agendas. Let's proceed to the stages of development of groups. First stage is getting started phase. This is when new leaders and members are chosen with goals being set. The next stage would be we are now underway stage. This is when you start to have grip on tasks given and discuss and relate with one another. Third is information seeking and fact gathering and analysis period. This is when you start to look for materials needed to clearly understand the task and start working it out. Fourth, the alternative stage. Simply, this is the stage where you formulate alternatives or options and does not stick to a single plan. For example, you have a plan A, but you also have a plan B and plan C. Next is decision making time. The group already agreed on the plan or program or approach with the most likely solution. Next is report preparation. This is the stage where the group of individuals prepare for their presentation. The seventh would be when the report presentation begins. It is when individuals finalize their output and submit it to the organization or body who created it. Last is the time of disbandment. You can now leave the group, or I mean, you can compliment each other for doing a great job, and that's it. That's how stages of development of groups work. Let's now proceed to the types of groups. These are the productive groups, non productive groups, and successful groups. These are already easily understood from their concept, but here are the qualities of each group. Productive ones are basically those who are the ones who stick to their assignment. Members who are carefully chosen, they are committed to their work, they keep good records of decisions or minutes and good inventory. Even the group has well prepared material for review and discussion. So, this is the group who's productive and committed, a group who does their work with a clear goal in mind. Meanwhile, in non productive groups, these are the groups who oppose the points from the productive groups. I won't read it one by one since the points just opposes the productive group points. They are those who are not unified and organized and does not clearly focus on what their goals really are. Successful groups. These are the ones who have clear goals and purposes, specifically defined and realistic in terms of resources. They have active participation, chosen dedicated leaders that focus on the task at hand, even enjoy a continuous change in leadership. Successful groups are the ones who clearly everyone should follow, along with the productive ones. This is when you have clear goals and values, teamwork, management, and good facilitation qualities. Next, we have the membership and participation. Responsible membership. A group exists with group of individuals and those individuals must be a responsible member with these qualities. I won't talk about it one by one since it's already sabotage, but those members who are responsible are the ones who attend meetings regularly and do their job and tasks, even share their opinions and ideas, consider their assignments, and they're willing to share their ideas on the group, and they already know the purpose of the group and the goal or objective of a particular discussion. While on the other hand, the reasons for lack of responsible participation, they're the ones who don't have enough time when forming a group. They might be overloaded or overworked. They lack knowledge or experience in the problem area being considered. They are not confident or they are quite less capable in terms of being able to blend their talents with others. So we need to consider the first slide on how to be a responsible member in a group. Next, we have the power dynamics and the sources of power. Before we discuss about these types of sources of power, let's define power first. It is the capacity or ability to direct or influence someone or something to act in a particular way. However, it could be limited depending on your skills in using social power. First, we have positional power. This comes from your particular position. Simple. It is, for example, when you are the president of the company, then you have the power to do anything inside the company. You have the position and authority because you're the president. That's the positional power. Referred power, on the other hand, it is when you don't have the position but you have the connection. You might not be the president, but you are friends with the president, which will make you a bit more powerful than others. Expert power. This is the power that comes from your own wisdom and knowledge, not because of your position or connection, but because you're just simply wise and you have skillful experience. That must be good. Ideological power. This is somewhat related or similar to expert power. However, this mainly focuses on your ideas, visions, and analysis. For example, you are powerful because you created this certain ideology for your company. On the other hand, obstructive power. This is similar to coercive power, which I think was discussed during senior high. It is when you threaten someone or manipulate them by showing coercion. For example, I'll fire you if you don't meet the goals of our team. That's how obstructive power works. You threaten or manipulate someone. Personal power. This comes from you, your own, like your personality and your charisma, which simply captivates and influences others because you seem powerful as an individual. Co-powering. This comes from modeling, validating, and feedback. You're powerful by the means of supporting other personal power. Collaborative power. It comes from collaboration and our ability to be part with others in team. Partnership, organizations, and more. Institutional power. This power certainly comes from a certain institution, being part of corporations and legal organizations and more. Cultural power. The source here comes from the cultural norms and privilege you have in a certain culture, like being part of this race, or this age or gender. Structural power. This comes from the dominant institutions in the society. And lastly, transcendent power. From the word itself, it could be something relative to spiritual God, deity, natural, or historical imperative. So those are the different sources of power. And remember, each and every one of us possess different sources of power, especially in group dynamics. Let's proceed to the meeting equipment. As we have briefly discussed a while ago during the topic about minutes, flip chart. It is really an important equipment, especially during meetings, used for jotting down information, agendas, and lists. This is how it looks like from the left picture. It is often used in meetings with thick and different colors of pens while drawing diagrams or graphs. Also, we need to consider this meeting checklist, the meeting room. So the meeting room should be considered, and we need to check all these points since we must also use a space or room which everyone is comfortable while conducting the meeting. The pre-notification agenda, we need to uh, have a preparation about the minutes, the materials that we need to distribute, and more. Lastly, a meeting isn't complete without an evaluation form after the whole thing. Here's the meeting evaluation form we must use in order to evaluate how effective the group facilitation was and how to assess the mistakes or success of the group. For example, the number one objective. Have the group Does the group desired outcomes were achieved? That is it yes, partially, or no? Were the group people were prepared? It is yes, partially, or no. So we need to consider filling up this meeting evaluation form for us to know as a facilitator or as a group or a member on how and in what aspect must you improve. Thus, Facilitation covers a huge scope and it does not come with just a single rule and few qualities. So this ends our topic, and just a quick reminder, we must consider a good and quality objective in order for the group to be progressive, effective, and successful. That would be all for this topic. Thank you for listening.